Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to bring you a review of a cycling game that's relatively new, that has been getting rave reviews elsewhere, and I couldn't help but pick it up because I have several friends who are into biking and cycling. I am not, although my son certainly is, having spent a lot of his allowance money on an entry-level bike that's a lot fancier than the $50 job I got from Walmart. And yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to bikes, it turns out. Yeah. Anyway, the game is Flamme Rouge, or whatever you call it. Flamme Rouge? It's French for red flag. That much I know because I'm a learned man and I read the manual, the 4-page manual. Anyway, Flamme Rouge is a cycling game where you are taking two of your cyclists. You get a sprinter and a roller, and the idea is to, as any racing game should, go from start to the finish line without losing. Anyway, let's take a look and see what it plays like. Alright, we're going to give you a sample today of Flamme Rouge and run through a couple turns. Now, turn order is very simple, and the first phase of it is simultaneous. So all players would do this, even though I'm going to do it sequentially. All players will do this at the same time. We're going to start with red. We're going to pretend that they were on a bicycle last. Red got a chance to place his bikers first, followed by green and blue. On your turn, you pick one of the riders in the energy phase. Take 4 cards. And then you decide from those 4 cards which one you want to use. I'm going to use this one. It's a 9. Of course it's going to be awesome, right? Because you want to use your highest cards, right? That makes sense, huh? And then you place it face down. All of the other players are going to do the same thing. For purposes of just explaining, I'm going to just pretend they all picked. One thing is, once you do pick your riders out of the 4 cards you have, the other 3 go face up underneath the stack. Where they will be recycled. In other words, they're not going to be available to you until you've cycled through all of the deck. And then once the draw deck is diminished, all the face-down cards have been depleted, then you can take these, flip it over, shuffle it, and make a new draw deck out of it. Alright, so we're going to begin with that. Once this is done, we switch and we do the other rider. So everybody then goes and picks 4 cards and decides which of these they want to use for their other rider. So I'm going to go ahead and once again simulate the experience as if these were really smart other riders. And then of course take these 3, place them underneath. The strategy for how you would pick is something that you learn over the course of the game, as far as when you would use which cards and stuff, which we'll talk about later. Alright, so everybody has chosen what to do with their riders. They've played their cards, and now we're going to go into what's called the movement phase. Everybody reveals all their energy cards. So everybody goes, ha ha, uno. Kidding. Alright, once they've revealed it, then all riders move forward. Now the order that the riders move forward is always the frontmost rider always moves next. And the frontmost rider is defined as the rider in the farthest ahead block on the right. So the right lane is always a tiebreaker. In this case, blue is our first one, and he's going to pick, he chose, this is the roller, and the roller chooses to go 3 spaces forward. So he's going to go 3 spaces forward. 1, 2, 3. Alright. Next, red. The red sprinter, he's going to do 9. 9. Now, how awesome is that? Like, why wouldn't you do that? Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Shift it over to the right lane. Always gravitate towards the right lane. Then, the next blue rider goes, and he has a 4. And so he's going to move 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh. So look at that, kind of a blocking pattern. After which, next is red, tiebreaker on the right. Red goes 6 spaces, so we're going to move him 6 spaces. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. You can leap over the riders if they're adjacent or they're blocking. You just can't land on them. If your ending space would have been that same block, you would have to move back to the first available block.
Finally, we have green. Green sprinter moves 3. 1, 2, 3. Wah, 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 wah. And then the green rider, 6. Ah, stay on your bike, dude. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, doggone it. Man. He has to bump back because he would have landed right where the blue cards were. And that is the end of the movement phase. Everybody's moved forward. Now here's the thing. All of these cards are out of the game. So the cards you use are gone. That is one thing that's a big reason why you wouldn't want to maybe use up all your 9 cards, because there's not that many of them. There's only, in the Sprinter deck, there's only 3. So you took a chance to try and bump out ahead of the pack right away. So these cards are out of the game. I'm just going to, they're not available again for use ever again. And then we apply Slipstream. Now, Slipstream is an interesting way to group writers together. This is not a good example. I'm going to set up another example in a subsequent turn to show Slipstreaming to you. Finally, exhaustion cards. Any writer that has an empty block in front has to take the corresponding fatigue card. Now, what do these do? Well, they're not very good for movement, are they? But they end up going in, recycling into the deck. So Red Sprinter, because he's so far out and there's nobody in front of him, he's taking all the brunt of it. He's got to go take a sprint card. And the other red has to take a sprint card. So he didn't do himself any favors with his card play. And that's the end of the round. And then we start all over again and do it again. I'm going to pause the game, and I'm going to set up the next set of cards so that I can explain slipstreaming to you, because it's such an important and fascinating part of Flamme Rouge. And I've made card choices here that I can explain slipstreaming to you. So we're going to go in the order again. It's the movement phase. Everyone's played their card. Now we're going to move all of our riders forward. Once again, red is in the lead. Whoever's in the lead always goes first. As a sprinter, he's going to move 3. 1, 2, 3. And once again, red, his other rider is still ahead. He moves 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, blue roller is going to move 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the blue sprinter is going to move 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Finally, green again. Green is going to move the roller 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And his sprinter is going to move 2. Now we're going to talk about slipstreaming. We go from the back to the front, and we look at any group, any pack of bicyclists. A pack is basically any adjacent cyclists in a cluster. So this is a pack, even of 1. This is a pack of 4. This is a pack of 1. Now, slipstreaming is that if you are exactly 1 space away, or you have one block of distance between you and the runner in the cyclist in front of you, you're allowed to move forward 1 space. And that is not applicable here because he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces between him and the rider in front of him. But if we look at this pack 1, 2, 3, 4 has 1 space in front. They all move forward for free. Yay! And then once again we do fatigue cards, and so sprinter, red sprinter would take a fatigue card, and poor little green guy in the back, he would take a fatigue card too, and it would be placed underneath. And that's basically slipstreaming. Now we'll go into my final thoughts for the game and tell you what I think of it.
So in the larger scheme of things, Flamme Rouge could theoretically be described as just another kind of racing game in similar vein to others with an eye on simplicity. But I think there are some subtleties, despite the simple mechanics, that really flesh out cycling in a very meaningful and significant and distinctive way. For example, there's a lot of racing games for various motifs, mostly in the car racing world. There's the Thunder Alley from GM Team Games, which is more simulation, although it has some similarities to this. Formula D is the classic car racing game, which handles differently in that it's compartmentally luck driven. You switch gears, you roll higher dice with a higher chance of moving faster, but at the risk of crashing if they're in turns and stuff. More thematic to fast high speed racing. There's also automobiles, the from a different company, AEG, that is kind of an odd juxtaposition of cube collection, as it were, and racing and such. So where does Flamme Rouge fit into all this? Well, it is I would call it a gateway game, because it is a fantastic introduction to to a game that straddles simple roll and move, although it's not roll and move, gameplay with an eye on some thought-provoking subtlety to how you actually win in Flamme Rouge. Part of it's the catch-up mechanism, the rubber banding, so to speak, when you're doing the drafting, the slipstream kind of effect, because it changes how you want to play the game, in that you can kind of count on, if you move just right, you can use. It's really a resource management game in some ways. You're not using the luck. You don't have dice, so it's not like an unlimited amount of possibilities. You have, for each of your cyclists, the roller and the speeder, a finite number of possible actions, and many of those are middle of the road, and you have your, as I showed in one of the first examples, your high speed, blast out of the gates. But once it's done, it's done. You don't get to reuse that again, and so you really are managing your resources. At what point do you want to break away? You do it too early, and you've used that card up, and you've also all but guaranteed that you're going to get fatigue cards, which are low movement. And so you could wind up being utterly exhausted halfway through the race, or maybe a little halfway through, and wind up getting caught up and passed. That's a choice you have to make. There's a lot of real tangible jockeying that goes on here. And with the slipstreaming, you do want to go, hey, if I'm in this pack, and this pack happens to just get just right behind other people, I'm going to move along with you. I'm going to use your energetic cards to drive me without me having to use a higher energetic card that I'm going to wind up not ever getting to use again. That is really impressive, and it's so well infused into the game in such a simple way that it's not something you're going to have to read an entire rule sheet and understand the flow charts of what you should or shouldn't do, or in what conditions you handle this or that. Everything is simple but elegant. I can completely see why this is being received as well as it is. The nature of it, the simple version of the game, honestly, that track could be just a straight track. It could just be a big long spreadsheet of spaces if you wanted to. If you're using the simple rules, which I did and which I was describing, but it is nice to be able to look and see the different configuration of tracks, and it saves on table space. Nobody has a table 20 feet long usually. But once you get into the other mode, the advanced mode, then you are getting even more tricky, and then the terrain starts to actually matter a little bit more, because the advanced variant, where you have different rules for as you're climbing up a mountain and as you're going down, and as far as what you can do, how you can maneuver, that adds much more of a strategic feel to it, and that will appeal more to the gamer's gamer type of folks. So without reservation, Flamme Rouge should be in anyone's collection that likes even the hint of the style of this. Someone who likes cycling and likes an occasional board game, this is a no-brainer. Pick it up. Just go grab it. It's great. Great pieces, great components, great setup. You can't go wrong. So once again, thanks for joining me on Harebrained Reviews, and we will see you next time on Harebrained Games.